Welcome to From Passive to Passionate, Transforming Learners with Engaging Tech Tools. So if you have not been to one of these are pretty fast-paced and highly interactive 30-minute webinars. We do rely on audience and participant interactions to make this webinar a success. Just like any other professional development session, we get to learn with and from each other throughout this session. So let's get started. So think about this. What is your favorite way to learn? I'll give you a moment to ponder that. I'm now going to launch a poll. That poll will be found either in the chat box or it will pop up in the center of your screen. And when it does, you will be allowed to select multiple ways. So share with us the ways that you like to learn. And then hit submit. And we'll see what answers are coming in today. So that poll is found either in the chat or it's a screen that popped up in the center of your screen. Those are the two places you can find those today. And it looks like we have some responses coming in. It looks like direct, interactive, tactile, visual, auditory are all interactive. Looks to be leading the way right now. So these are all ways that you like to learn. And when we look at these, we can think of, visual is definitely learning with what you see with your eyes. Auditory is what you hear. Tactile is what you touch. Kinesthetic is through movement. Sequential can be through the order, sequence, steps, simultaneously together. Verbal is through talking. Interactive is through doing. Reflective is through reflecting and thinking. So it looks like the one that came in with the lead is interactive. So let's think about that a little bit more. So if we know that we like to learn through the interactive method, what can we think about our students and our learners? So today we're going to look at identifying just a variety of tech tools. We're going to think about how we can leverage those tech tools with those ISTE standards we talked about last week. And then we're going to be able to reflect on our tech integration ideas. So last week we talked about the ISTE standards for students and educators, and then we aligned those with our learning outcomes so that we could look at the learning outcomes of our lessons. Think about the ISTE standard we were addressing, whether that was knowledge constructor, creative collaborator for our students, and then look at how we can integrate different tech tools to meet that need. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and look at specific tech tools. So if we think about this from an instructional technology perspective first, we know that there's 5 categories of adoption when it comes to using technology or any type of innovation. And there's a myriad of tools out there today. So this research was done by Everett Rogers in a book from 1962 called Diffusion of Innovations. And I know for myself, I've always been an innovator and an early adopter in my life and in my classroom as a teacher. So the 5 types are innovator. They're the people who like to try the tool first or try the product first. They're also known to be risk takers. The next group we have is called early adopters. These tend to follow the innovators. They don't take as many risks, but they tend to be more reasoned in their decision making. And then we have the early majority. This is when the product or the tech tool really appeals to that mass market. And then we have the late majority. They're a little skeptical of the tool or product. They want to see how it works for everyone else before they jump on the bandwagon. And then we have the laggards, and they just really value traditional methods. Do you know which category you fall into? Don't worry, you don't have to share that today. But just think about where you fall in this, the patterns of adoption or innovation using tech tools, because that'll be important as we go throughout the rest of today. So now that you know where you kind of might fall, let's look at some tech tools. So we know there are so many tech tools. There's tools that you use on iPads, that you use on Chromebooks, use on laptops, use on our smartphones. There's tools to help us communicate. There's tools to help us make decisions. There's tools to help us plan our day and help us be more productive. There's tools for us to share with the global audience, like social media. There's tools that help us do everything in our life today. So how do we decide which tools are going to help us as instructors and our students as learners? Are you ready? Let's see what we have. So the first ISTE standard we talked about last week was empowered learner. For students, this is really talking about how they leverage technology to take an active role in their own learning. Some key points about empowered learner is you can think about self-directed learner, goal setting, reflection, and feedback. So what are some tools? And as we go through these different ISTE standards and look at tools, if there are some that you have used and you want to share about, drop it in the chat, because like I said earlier, this is our time for us to learn with and from each other. So when I think about empowered learner, I can think about fostering that learning environment where my students take ownership of learning. So how can I do that? There's tools like Seesaw that provides that student-driven digital portfolio. The great thing about this one is you can also have some parent communication. So if you're working in the school market, you can add parents to this as well. But it's really an interactive portfolio. They can add voice, they can add pictures, they can add completed projects to really show their learning over the process. There's also tools like Vocal Voice that we use at GW a lot for marketing. I've also used it in some professional development sessions where people can leave vocal or voice feedback to certain questions. And so instead of having to type or write something out, you leave the feedback with your voice. And then of course, we know there's a whole Google suite of tools that really help students take ownership of their learning. Things where they can set goals, they can use sheets to organize their productivity. There's Google Calendar and all of those tools. Let's go to the next one. The next one, digital citizen. So this one really is what students recognize the rights and responsibilities and the opportunities of living, learning, and working in this interconnected world that we have. When you think of digital citizen, and this ISTE standard for students, you can think of digital etiquette, cybersecurity and privacy, and digital footprint. So how does that translate in our classroom? Like, how do we equip our students to think critically and to evaluate digital content? There's things like Common Sense Education, which has a whole digital citizenship curriculum. There's also the Google Safety Center that has a whole unit on digital citizen resources. There's also things that students can Google themselves. Have you ever had your students Google themselves? I did that one year, and they were shocked by the results that came up in Google about their name and their hometown location. It was a really eye-opening experience for students and their digital footprint. Have you tried any of those with your students? All right, let's go to the next one. Knowledge constructor. So what is this? This is really about students being able to curate information from a variety of sources, right? They're constructing knowledge, and then they have to communicate what they learn to others. The key points in knowledge constructor really deal with critical thinking, information literacy, and collaboration. Excuse me. So the question we ask ourselves as instructors is, how do I challenge my students to curate information from multiple sources so that they can construct knowledge and create new meaning or new understanding? So what tools would you use? If you have some, don't forget, you can drop them in the chat. We're all learning with each other. That's the great thing about technology, is there's so many tools and you get to select what works best for you and your students. But with this one, there's things like Evernote to help them pull information from multiple resources and house it in one location. There's things like Google Research. Have you used Google Research? So if you open up the Chrome browser and you go to the 9 dots in the upper right-hand corner, Google Research will be one of the apps on there that you can look at. And it's really for researching and finding information. I like to think about it as the microfiche from back in the day when I was working in undergrad and on my master's. Then there's things like Padlet, and we've used Padlet here in this office hour webinar before. It's a way for us to pull information from multiple sources and start to organize it in some manner so that we can create new meaning and new understanding in our professional development session. All right, what's the next one? Innovative designer. So this ISTE standard is really about using a variety of technologies to design and create innovative products and solutions to authentic problems. The key points for innovative designer are creativity, problem solving, design thinking, and even prototyping. So as educators, what can we ask ourselves so that we can select the best tools for our students to be innovative designers? We can ask ourselves, how do I inspire students to develop original ideas and use technology to design and create new products, which create solutions? Things like Canva, it's kind of like the graphic communication, the digital arts. You can create whatever you want on Canva, and they even have Canva for education now. Tinkercad and Scratch. And Scratch is like a code-based program, but you can actually create different designs within Scratch. So we're allowing students to take information, new knowledge that they have, new ideas, and show us what it looks like, or to create real products by being innovative designers. Another example of this might be when I worked in Texas, our engineering program had a 3D printer. And those students in that class, to learn to make designs on the 3D printer, their first challenge was to create our district logo. So they would create the district logo, and then they ended up selling them and giving them away to teachers and schools and selling them to the public because people wanted it. So they were creating a product for an authentic audience through learning how to use a 3D printer, which would make them innovative designers as well. All right, I don't see any messages in the chat, so let's keep going. The next one, computational thinking. So, this is really a problem-solving process, involves breaking down those complex problems into smaller, more manageable parts. In computational thinking, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for step-by-step solutions. So how do we integrate that into all of the different subjects that we teach in the career and technical education space? You can ask yourself, how do I integrate computational thinking skills into my curriculum? There's several ways that we do this. Accounting definitely looks for patterns and step-by-step solutions. There's also programs like Scratch, that coding one. It's all about computational thinking. You can also use Excel to organize information and data, to break those complex problems down into smaller chunks of information, more manageable parts, as well as Google Sheets. So there's lots of ways that we can bring computational thinking into all areas that's not STEM or accounting specific. The next one, creative communicator. Remember this ISTE standard? This one's really talking about how students communicate clearly and effectively and use a variety of digital tools. So key points are, of course, communication, collaboration, and storytelling. So how do our students go about storytelling, go about communicating about the different information and content that they're learning and about the products that they're creating to solve problems and solutions? Once again, Canva, it's a really great one. If you've tried Canva, give me a thumbs up in the React button. It's a cool tool. Like I said, they have Canva for education now, so you can get an account that way as an educator. I'm seeing a few thumbs up coming in. You can create PowerPoints, you can create web pages, you can create flyers, brochures, business cards, social media posts. They have templates for all of that in there for you. Also PowerPoint, they joke death by PowerPoint, but think about ways that we can use images and video within our PowerPoint, and then also Zoom. Even like this webinar, this gives us different ways that we can communicate using the React button, using the chat button, using different images. So there's lots of ways that we can create, even on virtual calls. And Adam just put in the chat also that he likes Adobe Express over Canva. That's really good to know. So we can also explore Adobe Express to see how that would fit for our students to help them communicate more creatively and effectively. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Next one, global collaborator. So this is the last of those 7 ISTE standards, right? And this one is just talking about how do our students use digital tools to connect with learners from diverse cultures across the globe. How do they explore global issues and develop solutions? So key points to remember about global collaborator are definitely global awareness, cultural sensitivity, virtual collaboration. So how can we basically connect our students and learners with those around the world? You can also think about it in terms of like using virtual calls like we are today or like Zoom. Skype is a great one. I used to work with an educator in Oklahoma, and he would have a Skype session every morning as students were coming into an elementary school where he worked in the cafeteria. So students in the morning before school started were getting a chance to connect with people and classes across the globe. The morning I went over there to visit, they were in South America. So a school from South America was connecting with them that morning. But he took students around the world through Skype. It was really cool to see. You can also connect with blogs and social media. I was always a little leery to use social media in my class as an instructor, but I liked the idea of back channel conversations. So having conversations going on during lecture to really enrich that lecture material, the content material. Adam's also saying that he likes to use YouTube Live. If you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat, how do you like to use that? That would be great to know as well. Rebecca likes to use Teams. It's easier to integrate Microsoft programs. Absolutely. And sometimes you don't even have to have specific technology. So there used to be this thing called the Global Read Aloud. And so students from around the world would read the same book during the same semester. And it was usually the spring semester. And then they would send postcards, or they would do Skype sessions together so they can meet classes together. So once again, even if we're not using technology, which I know today is about technology, but if we're not, there's ways that we can still connect and be global collaborators in our learning environments with students. Okay, that was a lot of information. If you have a question, now's a great time to put it in the chat. If you have a tool that you're dying to share, like Adam and Rebecca, let's see, several other people have put some in the chat. Now's the time to do that. We love sharing because that's how we as educators learn, is through sharing ideas, because we're all expert educators and have great experiences to share. Adam also said, with YouTube Live, as a shop teacher, I can video the lesson and have students answer and ask questions in the chat. Absolutely, that's a great way to use that. Great way to make it a little more interactive as well. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so we're going to start to pull all this together. So the summation from today really is there are a lot of different tech tools, but if we frame it from the lens of these are the ISTE standards that have been defined by research that just help us bring a framework to our thoughts, there's different tools that can fit in the different standards and help us achieve different goals. It doesn't mean that one is more right than the other. The idea is to find what works best for you and your students. So let's start to summarize what we're doing. So once again, it's called What Did I Learn Today? So I'm going to open up another poll. And once again, this poll will be found in the chat, as well as it should pop up in the center of your screen in a box so that you can complete it. And I'm going to close one poll and start the next. And it is launching momentarily. So it says, what did I learn today? It'll pop up a box where you can type in, it says enter your response, type your response there, and then hit the submit button. Let's see, what did we learn today? We also have more ideas coming in the chat box, so it's a great place to maybe steal some things that you learned today. I'll give you just a couple of minutes to type in something in that poll. It will either be located, like I said, in the center of your screen or in the chat box. As you're entering that, also know that Rebecca has shared that she records all of her in-person lectures in Teams, and then they can rewatch the videos while doing homework. They can also chat or do a virtual meeting when they need help. That's a great idea. Adam says then the video is available easily afterwards for all as well to share the missed knowledge, absolutely. Mary's talking about how to organize tech tools according to student strengths, absolutely. Mary, that also makes me think of how can we incorporate student choice in this process? So if we have some tools, and how can we allow students to select tools that will get us what we're looking for? Veronica's also talking about different tech tools to try in class. Great. And we can see that we're looking at some tech apps to use with training, Adobe Express, Canva. Some people got some new ideas from some different tech tools to collaborate globally. Yes, that's always hard for me as an instructor myself. Like, how can I help connect my students with an authentic audience? Some of our career tech courses naturally lend themselves to that, and others makes it a little more challenging. Yeah, Tim also said, nice for educators to see how tools are connected to specific strategies. Absolutely. All right, we have quite a few responses coming in the chat and the poll right now, so I'm going to close that poll. Thank you so much for participating with that. And let's start to wrap this up and provide you with some additional resources. So this is our 3-part series on tech integration. So you may have been part of the survey that we sent out to a lot of educators between April and June, asking what type of PD did you want from GW? What topics did you want? And the top 3 topics were technology integration, differentiation and scaffolding, and assessments. And so we have put together 3-part series for the next 3 months. And so this is the one that's going to wrap up our integration with technology. It's called The Future, Emerging Technologies and Industry Trends. This one is going to be all about AR, VR, and AI in the classroom. We're going to look at different tools. We're going to look at feedback, continuous learning. So be sure to scan that QR code. Join us on September 10th. So it's not next week or the following week because that's Labor Day. It's the week after on the 10th. So join us on September 10th for The Future, all about AR, VR, and AI. That's a lot of letters to say. Then also, for your certificate today, don't forget to scan that QR code. I'm also going to drop the link in the chat. Oh, I'm going to add the file in the chat that will have all these links for you as well. But scan that QR code, you'll have access to your certificate of attendance. And then, because of the way Teams works, it's really hard to distribute that recording because of the way our internal IT settings are set. So what we are doing is all of these sessions are recorded and placed on a YouTube playlist. So you can access that playlist by scanning that QR code. You can also go to Goodheart-Willcox on YouTube and find the office hour playlist. These webinars will be added by the end of the week from which they were held live. So by Friday, you should have access to today's webinar. So scan that QR code. Also, while you're on our YouTube page, as you can see with that red arrow, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be notified when new content arrives there. Then, last but not least, we love feedback and evaluation, and we like to make things better at GW. We do review these after every session and as a group every month. So take a moment, scan the QR code, leave some feedback about today's session, tell us what you liked. We'll make sure we do it more often. If you tell us what you don't like, we'll make sure we don't take it. We take it out of future events. We take it very seriously. So scan that QR code, and then I have one more slide to show you. About all the resources from today have been linked on a Word document. And so they are hyperlinked on that Word document. And it just means that you might have to click Control before you click on the hyperlink to access the link. But all of these QR codes I have transformed to links. And so let me show you where that is. So if you'll go to Files on today's webinar, you'll notice that there is the file, and then you'll see one that says 8.20.24 OH links. That is your Word document that has all the links from today's session for the next webinar, for your certificate, for the YouTube channel. You can find all of that on this document. But like I said, it is a Word document, so you might have to click Control and then click on the hyperlink to access that hyperlink. And with that, I'm going to check the chat one more time for any questions, comments, and then. So Cynthia, we are working on a way to automate our certificates. Right now, they're just in a Google Drive folder where you can actually type in your name, and then we'll have the name of today's session, the date, and then you can keep those, turn them in, whatever you need to do with them. And then I see one more coming back from Samina to go back so I can subscribe. That is going to be on that YouTube channel. And we are also working on a way to automate this so that it will send you an email that has your certificate and the recording together. We're not there yet, but I just had a meeting with marketing yesterday. And so we are definitely working on that to make your life easier to access all of the resources from today. So with that, I'm going to hang out for another 30 seconds, a minute. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. Other than that, we're going to say thank you so much for joining us for this fast and furious 28-minute webinar today. And we hope you have a great back to school season and hope to see you on September 10th for our session all about AR, VR, and AI. With that, y'all have a great day.